So Rumi's really getting at here that every level of the nafs has its challenge. And at this level, right, the lip of full enlightenment or full mutma'inna, the veil or the challenge is the very sense of I, the very sense of self-consciousness or self-awareness or separate identity, right? So the first lion, the parallel problem was egoism. Okay? But this one, it's not exactly egoism because you've kind of transformed that arrogance. Now, you're not arrogant. It wasn't arrogance, but there's still a separate sense of I, which is keeping you from true divine unity. And Rumi's getting at that there's a deep-seated egoism that has usurped the deepest part of our humanity. And it's lying behind the subconscious drives and emotions and desires. And so how do we overcome it, right? All traditions have kind of monastic ideals, even a tradition like Islam, which doesn't have monks or nuns, but the idea of poverty, chastity, obedience, eating less, sleeping less, speaking less. It's through that we kind of overcome these things, and also community and being in a community of spiritual seekers and a prophetic example. And then of course the Sufis add the peer, the spiritual guide, having someone who has arrived to support. So one of the important things to point out is that there is an autobiographical part to this in many stories of the Masnavi. So Rumi was a great spiritual teacher, and he was already spiritually very, very advanced when he met Shams, but he had not attained that final fatah, that great opening, that great enlightenment. So he was like on the lip of that, but he still had some separateness. He still had some I. And so what does Shams do when he meets him? After he takes him into his guidance, he says, you're no longer a teacher. You're no longer a sheikh. You no longer have disciples. You no longer have your position and your reputation. He basically has Rumi, he's like, retire. And so Rumi says, then I retire. He left all of that just to be in this contemplation with Shams. And this is because he had to leave that. Something of that was like the final veil that was blocking him from true attainment of extinction in divine unity and divine love. And so he exchanged those things and that reputation and that teaching with ecstasy of mystical experience and love and transcendence. And of course, Rumi is emphatic that love is the thing that's going to wean us from all of our things, because love, at the end of the day, the nafs wants to feel good, it wants to feel big, it wants to feel important. We all want this, right? But love is the one thing that makes you feel smaller, but in a good way, right? No one likes to be belittled or made to feel small or unimportant or negative. But when you feel love, you feel small, but in a good way. So Rumi's getting at that love, it actually shrinks your ego. If it's true love, if it's divine love, if it's altruistic love, it's an easier way to shrink your ego than too much hardship and difficulty, right? No. And Rumi reached this point where he could barely distinguish between himself and Shams and between God and Shams, right? He was like in the state of so deep in divine love and divine light that he was like, it was all oneness. And they talk about this, that we hear about this term fana fillah, annihilation or extinguishment in God. This is when the drop comes to the ocean, as Rumi said, and there's no more drop, right? This is when the moth, to use another one of his images, flies to the flame and is burnt up. There's only divine unity. But before that, there's fana fi Rasulullah. There's extinguishment in the Prophet of God, sallallahu alaihi. When you truly, this is following his sunnah. Don't just think it's about beard length and clothes. You extinguish yourself in the light of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi, until you just see nothing but him, sallallahu alaihi. And before that, the way to get there, to these higher levels, is fana fi shaykh. If you have a true master, they will be a mirror for you, and they will help you to extinguish your illusory traits. They say about the shaykh that the shaykh is a mirror and reflects to you your faults. And it's a very strange thing that I wouldn't have necessarily believed if I didn't experience it, but there's something about like being in the presence of a individual who is a clear mirror, where you see yourself, you're like, oh, like I thought I was doing great. I mean, in their presence, you're like, oh, I am not who I thought I was. I have major work to do. It's true. And it's you don't love it, but you also know that this is the only way that you're going to become clear of that. Right? And that's why Ibn Ata'Allah, in one of his hikam, he said, don't be on the lookout for spiritual experiences. And he said, just be on the lookout for the faults in your ego. Because if you want, what's that opening is the reflection, the light reflected in the mirror of being. That's what I want to see. He said, if you want to experience that, all you have to do is polish the mirror. That's the defect. Just polish the mirror. Don't be like, where's the light? Where's the light? Just be like, where's the rust on the mirror? That's what we focus on. And then the light will come. You don't have to seek the light. You just have to seek all that's in you that blocks the light. Ya Latif. So, the nafs's claim to identity, right? The nafs says, ana, provokes the lion and costs the wolf his head. The aql, the higher intellect of wisdom, makes no such claim. The partial intellect is the intellect cut off from the light of spirit, and so it becomes a tool of the nafs, whereas the universal intellect is the intellect as a tool of the spirit. So the central message of this discourse is that there are no room for two eyes. And this is why, just to close, the other, right, our sisters mentioning the study of Vedanta in non-dual schools, right, they say things like, you are the ultimate reality, right? Atman is Brahman, and these kind of like things. The Sufis would be like, be careful saying these type of things. Because if it's your nafs saying it, it's a big problem. If you're not actually there, it's coming from the wrong place, right? So Rumi says that he uses this idea of the ruby. He says we have a stony nature and a ruby nature. A stony is blocking the light. A ruby is reflecting the light. So he says a ruby, if it loves itself, it is loving the sun. If it loves the sun, it is loving itself. It's all the light. He said, but the stone, if it loves itself, it is intensely unfaithful. It blocks the light. You hold a stone up, blocks the light. So this is the idea. And then he says, Pharaoh claimed divinity and was destroyed. Pharaoh, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la, I am your Lord Most High. Where he said, Hallaj said the same thing and was saved. We'll get to this later, but Hallaj is the great mystic who has this mystical utterances, Ana al-Haq, I am the real. But the Sufis, and he was martyred for this blasphemy, but the Sufis later said, no, he was speaking from absence from self. It was purely the cleansed mirror that was reflecting the light of divine unity. So he spoke from truth, even though people that were stuck on the outward couldn't accept that. That's a longer story, we will get into that. But the point here is that the Sufis emphasize not saying, I am the truth, until you become there, but to say, Huwa al-Haq. Who is the pronoun which indicates the divine essence. We say who, it means the divine essence, right? So for instance, one of the students was with his sheikh, and the sheikh said to him, he said, who's better? Who's spiritually better? The one who says, I'm so wonderful, I'm so amazing, I'm so spiritual? Or the one who says, I'm so terrible, I'm so weak, I'm such a sinner? And so the student thinks, he said, definitely the second one is better because he's being humble. And the Shaykh says, no, they're both the same. They just keep saying, I. Just say Allah. Just say Allah. Get over yourself. They're both obsessed with themselves. Right? So the Sufis, they just say, who. And eventually yourself will be gone. Right? Don't just... And so, in closing, we started with the dhikr. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah, hu. These are central to the Sufi path. Our Master Habib Umar, in commenting upon this, he said that we have descending levels of the self. Our self, we have the heart, which is a seat of consciousness. And the heart is unlocked, the spiritual heart, by La ilaha illallah. Repeating it unlocks the heart. Inside the heart, in a deeper dimension of ourself, there is the ruh, the spirit. And the spirit is unlocked by saying, Allah, Allah. Inside the spirit, the inner reality of the spirit, the batin of the spirit, is called the sir, which is often translated as secret. But a better translation is mystery. Because a secret is something you don't tell, but a mystery is something you can't tell, even if you wanted to. And what unlocks the mystery at the center of our being? Hu. And even beyond this, the secret, they say there's a secret of secrets, sir. But that's for someone else to talk about. So may Allah open our hearts and open our spirits and open our inner mysteries to His presence. And may we come to Him without arrogance and without egos and truly be humble. And may we be humbled gently, not the difficult way. Because everyone will come to Him humble. So we ask for the gentle path to that humility, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Rumi says, everyone will come to this path, some willingly and some unwillingly. It's best to come now while you still have a choice than to be dragged at death when you have no option. La ilaha illallah. May Allah bring us gently and not bring us severely. Ya Rabbil Alameen. And may Allah allow us to be those who have adab with Him and adab with each other and adab with Him through each other. And may we take the benefit of this place, this blessed city, and may we come to Him not saying ana, but come saying who. Who is it that is at the door? Who. Alhamdulillah. إلى حضرة الفاتحة.